Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today I'm going to be predicting who I think is going to be the first to die in the Age of Umbra. So without further ado, I recommend leaving this video if you aren't caught up with the Age of Umbra, because we are now 5 episodes deep. So yeah, recommend clicking off because spoilers. So like I said before, we are 5 episodes deep into the Age of Umbra, and luckily everyone is still alive, which sort of flies in the face of the idea that this was going to be like super hard and people were going to die and all that stuff. But that's only so far, because we are still, 3 episodes remaining, I think. Wait, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 3 episodes remaining of Age of Umbra, so we still have some time to see some characters drop, and I get the feeling we're going to see a handful drop like flies in the very near future, as we've now leveled up, or they have leveled up, which means that fights can be a little bit more hard because they have more stuff available to them as well. So things are going to get a little, more difficult as time moves on. So I'm going to make my prediction today as to who I think would be, likely just gameplay wise, who I think is going to die first. But then on top of that, I think who would make the most interesting person to die first. So for a storytelling reasons, who I think would be the most fun to see die first and how everyone else would react to it. So with that all being said, let's get into it. So I want to kind of just start off purely by talking about like how combats have been going for some of these characters, and some of them have had rougher times than others, specifically 3 who immediately come to mind being Strahd, Misty, and August. The 3 of them have had a nightmare of a time. I believe all 3 of them have been down at least once, and 2 of them have been downed multiple times up to this point, and I'm pretty sure Misty's been downed the most. So realistically, these characters have had a very, very rough go of things. So for me, these 3 seem like they're the ones who are going to be like in the worst position. Out of all of them, Misty would probably be the one I suggest going down first, because her abilities sort of force her to be in a up-close ability, like up-close fight. She tends to run in and uses her Wild Flame ability, and then it sort of leaves her in a really bad position against other melee attacking people. So she ends up right next to the big boss trying to cast this spell on them. Typically, it deals damage and causes them to be on fire, but then she's in a really bad position. Whereas a character like August, who can fly around and not really be all that bothered by melee attacks, which is what most of the main bosses have been so far, which was melee attacks. If we start seeing some ranged fighting happening towards August, I could see him going down first. And then Strahd is in a very similar situation to Misty. However, he has more escape options than she does. Like, he can literally run up to somebody, attack them, and then fall into a shadow. So realistically, as long as he doesn't fail or give fear to Matt, I feel like he's in a decent spot and will likely go down less. He's just really squishy. And I think squishy is what all 3 of these characters are. Like, they're in sort of a rough position just in the fact that they likely have less health, less armor points. So for them, they're sort of in this rough spot where they have some decent armor compared to others. Like, I'm pretty sure Idle and Brixton get hit more often, but these characters get hit way harder than those 2, and it kind of just puts them in a really bad position constantly. Misty has been the person who's had to make the roll the most, where if she picks if she's going to risk it all and stand back up, or if she's going to wait for everyone else to pick her back up, she's been downed the most. So if I'm going to make a prediction out of these 3 who I think is going to die like mid-combat, or just randomly throughout combat, these ones are going to be the ones that end up dying. Now, on top of that, there is also like a combat mechanic that I sort of have to look at as far as like which ones are going to be put in like the worst positions. And I think Idle and Brixton sort of fit in this like spot as well, of characters who put themselves at risk a lot. Brixton's entire character is about using her armor slots to protect other people, and she takes the damage for them. I think this could leave her in a very bad position if things go really poorly for them and they keep stacking fear and failures up in a succession, and Matt is able to abuse this and Brixton is trying to sit here absorbing damage for everyone else. I could see her getting put down as well, but I feel like out of everyone, like, the biggest target on people is going to be Idle. Idle is the healer of the group, especially lately now that he has 2 healing abilities. So he's going to put a target on his back once people start going down, and he heals them, and he's able to like get people brought back into like the fight. Other enemies are going to see this and be like, oh, that's a guy we have to deal with because he's picking people back up. He's going to make himself a target, and in doing so, I think he's going to get hit a lot more often. He's already been hit a lot. I don't think he's ever been down in combat yet, but he gets hit almost every single time someone swings at him. Very, very rarely does anyone ever miss when swinging at Idle. So I think these 5, if I'm truly looking at like combat stuff, these 5 are the ones who I think are going to go down the quickest, or become targets as time goes on. Adelia is sort of always out of range, and Snyx is able to just get in, get out, and he uses a ranged attack weapon. Not to mention, Snyx is an absolute god. So as far as I'm concerned, Snyx, who has been downed once in the past, but has never since been in any like really rough shape since then, I feel like those two are relatively safe. Not to mention, with Adelia being a 9-year-old girl, everyone else is going to protect her. Something tells me Adelia is in very safe hands moving forward, and something tells me that Snyx, a character who has shown his ability to be able to maneuver around the battlefield without any issue whatsoever, is also going to be in a decent like spot during combat. Now, much like how I brought up the fact that Idol is a character who's like healing people on the battlefield, I want to sort of circle back to Brixton for a minute, because something tells me that the way that she's acting, like with her being like super into like remembering the old ways of like the fighters and like the armies and how she wants to honor them, and then at the same time like she wants to like, you know, push forward the idea of gods and stuff like that. I feel like her words are also going to make her, and her actions as she's sort of leading them through like certain areas, like, you know, being inspired by the people who came before her. I feel like her words and her actions are really going to get her in a lot of trouble with people. If they come across the wrong people while they're in the Cinnabar Quarter or something along those lines, I could very easily see her putting herself in a very bad position with a bunch of people and making her a target to all of them. So that way she'll be in a bad position as well. Now, if I truly had to make a prediction out of who I think is going to die first out of all of these characters, it's Misty, because not only does she go down really often, but she also draws a lot of attention from people just like Brixton does. And it's simply just because of who she is as this stone, like angelic looking individual. She tends to draw a lot of attention to herself. So I think if we're sort of blending combat and story here, like, or character actions and character stuff into like why combat is happening, I think she's probably going to be the one to die first. And if she goes down, August is probably going to end up in a rage, and we're going to see him like sort of doing things that he wouldn't normally do, getting himself killed. So my prediction for the first person to die, like based on combat and like actions like surrounding combat, I think is going to be Misty, which will be unfortunate because we haven't delved into her story yet. But I think it's very likely with how often Ashley is really sitting there struggling with if she wants to risk it all or not. And I truly, truly believe there's a good chance she risks it all and dies. So I've talked about the combat scenarios and how I think like somebody's going to go down in combat, but let's talk about the storytelling aspect for a little bit and see how, you know, interesting it would be for them to push forward without these people and how the party would react without certain characters being around still. I think one of the best examples of a character like this would be Brixton. Brixton is the firekeeper of the party, and without her, like, they're not going to have many safe havens in many other places. Her being able to use her like background with history and her knowledge and position of being a pyre keeper has helped them in the past. It was the reason they were able to get any sort of help from Valkuru. The city that gave them aid and like is now providing like some sort of defense for Desperlock. That city wouldn't have helped them if it weren't for Brixton. So Brixton was a very useful individual to have, and she has a lot of great knowledge, and she has a lot of, you know, great understanding of the stuff that's sort of going on around her. She was part of the reason they were able to succeed in the most recent combat where they were fighting off the ghosts and the, you know, the sort of civil war that was happening down in that section of the world. She was the one who was able to like count down the clock the most and sort of end the combat for them in the best way possible. So I truly believe that if they were to lose her, they would lose a lot of history to the world and a lot of knowledge to that. Also, I think the way that like Idol and Misty and even Snyx has been reacting to this person of like her being, or her wanting to worship the gods and then also idolizing like the old armies, her, you know, she's been inspiring to characters like Misty, who also was a part of that time. And, you know, the two of them have a fun rapport, and how often Misty gets blocked by Snyx, or not Snyx, by Brixton. Brixton, like, blocks for her more than anybody else. If she goes down, Misty will be in a very, very bad position in combat. So as far as, like, Misty's connection goes, that's pretty huge. Also, Snyx and Idol seem to have like the most relation to her, as like they've known her the longest out of everyone else. Specifically Snyx, there seems to be a rapport between them already. The two of them would have a huge, like, they would be very angry if she were to go down, especially Snyx, because they were both from Desperlock. So the two of them have a very strong connection, and like they even know somebody else in another city. So for them to lose each other would be a very rough moment, especially for Snyx, who doesn't want to lose anybody. Snyx, like, his motivation as of right now is keeping everybody alive because he doesn't want, like, to feel what it feels like to lose people again, which is unfortunate because it seems like we're going to lose people at some point. And then as far as Idol goes, with his connection to Brixton, we see that he's now seeing flashes of divinity within her. So maybe there's like some sort of connection between them in that sense, where her like true belief in the gods is going to guide him towards belief himself, because right now he's in a weird position of he has the powers, but he doesn't necessarily have the belief. So I feel like if she were to die, he would be pushed into being a believer more, or maybe it could push him in the opposite direction, where it's like, this follower who loved you is now dead and you didn't help them. And I think that would be like an interesting story for them to tell for Idol. And I touched on it a bit briefly before. I feel like in certain like combinations of characters, I feel like if Misty or August would die, the other two would be very pissed off, and maybe they would find, you know, themselves being more reckless moving forward. And then as like the adverse of that, if like Screeve were to die, like with Adelia, like if Screeve were to be the one to die, I feel like Adelia would push forward and still want to like do things for Screeve and to like remember him. But something tells me that if Adelia were to die, Screeve would go insane and might be like a problem for the rest of the party, which I think would be really compelling to see as well. It's just we don't know as much about these characters as of yet to really make that prediction quite yet. So I'm hoping these four, at the very least, stay alive long enough for us to learn more about them. I don't feel like we're going to learn more about August anymore, but Misty I would love to learn more about, and then obviously Adelia and Screeve are the two characters who we need to know more about in general. So if I were to pick characters who shouldn't die based off storytelling reasons, it's Adelia and Screeve, because they still have the most story to be told now. So I'm very excited to see that aspect of it as well. I'm hoping, and as far as I'm concerned, like storytelling wise, Brixton would be the most interesting death, but at the same time, Snyx would be an interesting death as well, because he's sort of been guiding them to this point. So if they were to lose their guide, that could be a huge problem. He seems to know the in and outs of how people are like work and like sort of deal with each other in different areas, and he's literally a guide. If they were to lose their guide for their way back, that could be a huge problem and even extend their travel like days or weeks at a time. So I think that would be very compelling for them, just on like a travel sort of issue, if they were to lose Snyx. Personally, I would like them to not lose Snyx because he's really cool and he's really growing on me. So personally, as far as storytelling reasons, I think the person who dying would be the most interesting would be Brixton. I feel like it would divulge out into many other possibilities of like intrigue and stuff like that. So storytelling wise, Brixton being the one to die would be the most compelling. So there you have it. My two predictions, one for combat, one for storytelling purposes. And to reiterate what those were, Misty for combat, because I feel like she's the one who ends up in the worst positions, and Brixton for story, because I feel like she will be able to like make the most amount of character growth happen for other people within the story. So let me know what you guys think. Give me your predictions for who you think is going to die first in the comment section down below. I'm also curious as to think who you guys think will make it all the way. Who's going to be the one to make it back the entire way? Personally, if I were to make that prediction, I think Snyx and I think Adelia are two characters who are guaranteed to make it. And I might lean towards Idol, because there's still a story for him to be told, and maybe Matt will lean away from killing Idol because of that. He feels like there's some really compelling stuff there, but who knows? Maybe Matt is more vicious in Age of Umbra than other places. Some people would argue so far he hasn't been, but we'll see. So I'm excited to see more in the future. Anyway, I will see you guys on Friday for the recap of episode 6 of the Age of Umbra. Until then, peace.